I welcome you to this session on machine learning. In this lecture, we are going to discuss about our last type of supervised learning algorithm, that is SVM. Now, very first question arises, what is SVM? SVM stands for the spot vector machine. It is one of the most simple algorithm in classification algorithm. It is used to classify data. Spot vector machine uses hyperplanes which acts like a boundaries to distinguish between the data as shown on the screen. Now SVM can be used to separate the data which is divided into segments and each segment contains only one kind of data. So a few features of SVM includes that it is a supervised learning algorithm, meaning that it's going to study a labeled training data. Another feature is that it is again a regression and a classification algorithm. SVM is used for the classification. There is something known as spot vector regressor, which is used for the regression. Now, SVM can also be used to classify non-linear data and a linear data. Basically, SVM classifies the data in two or more than two types with a line that is known as hyperplane. This is known as SVM. Now, let me discuss about how SVM works. In order to understand how SVM or spot vector machine works, let me consider a small example. Imagine that you own a farm and you have a problem. You need to set up a fence to protect your cats from dogs. Now you need to decide where you want to build your fence. To solve these problems, we can use spot vector machine. So if I do that and if I try to draw a boundaries between the cats and the cats it look like as shown on the screen. Spot vector machines draws a boundaries which is also called hyperplane between any two classes in order to separate them or classify them. Now question arises, how do we know where to draw a hyperplane? The basic principle behind the SVM is to draw a hyperplane that best separates the two classes. In our case, the two classes are cats and dog. Now before we move further, let we discuss different terminology that are there in spot vector machine. First one is hyperplane. It is a boundary that separates the two classes. And second one is what are spot vectors? So when you start with the spot vectors machines, you start by drawing a random hyperplanes and then you check the distance between the hyperplanes and the closest path from each of the class. These closest path are also known as spot vectors. Now as shown on the screen, these two data points are closest to hyperplane. So these are known as the spot vectors, and that's where the name came from, the spot vector machine. So thanks for watching this video. If you want to stay connected and stay updated about the recent technologies, then subscribe to our YouTube channel.